As part of today's announcement, the president declared a national economic emergency, which the White House says gives him the authority to impose the tariffs. To help us understand more about all of this, I'm joined again by Roben Farzad, economic analyst and host of Public Radio's Full Disclosure. Great to see you here, Roben.
Thank you.
So let's just get your reaction to these announcements. Big picture, is this better or worse than what folks were anticipating?
It's slightly better than what people were expecting, but the headlines have been so volatile, and he's been chucking and jiving and changing directions and being positive about it and being bearish about it on other days. So a lot was building up to April 2nd, so it could have been a lot worse.
So the president held up that chart that we saw that was handed out to journalists as well. It listed all the tariffs that have been imposed on the U.S. by each country and then the tariff that the U.S. would levy in response. What stood out to you about this when it comes to the president's approach to these tariffs?
You know, I'm reminded of a tableau. It was Bill Clinton, President Bill Clinton, I believe in 1993, signing NAFTA. And he was surrounded by Bob Dole, Al Gore, I think George Bush Sr. There was so much unanimity over this new world order. And we were approaching, the other China entering the World Trade Organization and the gains from trade that used to be something that, a moderate Democrat and left-wingers and right-wingers could nominally agree on. And here you have Trump really with gusto shattering that idea of new world economic order that's been building for the past 40 years. And he did it in one fell swoop. So there's no real playbook for this. We could look back to the Depression and this Hawley-Smoot tariff and various other things that happened, but we've never had anything just line up in one day, just in staccato fashion like this. And I'd be very curious to see what the reaction is from finance ministers across the planet and multinationals over the coming week.
Do you get a sense from what we know so far about what industries could be hardest hit and also what consumers should anticipate?
Well, look at cars already, right? I mean, everybody has been anticipating something coming down the pike. We've already seen, as you and I have discussed before, significant inflation through the pandemic in car prices, what $40,000 or $50,000 can tell you. And so much of this is perception and self-fulfilling prophecy. If you're a car dealership or a chain of dealerships and you have only so many things on the lot and various things on a CSX, rail car and other things on tankers coming over, you're going to covet that supply. And there are going to be many people that are afraid and maybe want to pull forward a car purchase. Again, what is an American car? What is a Japanese car? Many great Subarus are made in Indiana, right? Volkswagen, Mercedes, Toyota, they have plants here in the United States. There'll be a tremendous amount of confusion, and it might be like kind of buy first, ask questions later.
So that baseline 10% tariff goes into effect pretty soon, midnight on April the 5th. The other additional retaliatory tariffs go into effect about a week from now. It's a pretty short timeline. What does this mean for the countries and the companies impacted here in terms of what they can do to get ready?
Well, a little bit nefariously, it provides some cloud cover to companies who want to hike prices. We saw that, they called it greedflation disdainfully during the pandemic. But if you're in there and saying, well, we're more uncertain about our supply chain than we were last week, so we have an interest with our shareholders to hike the price. I mean, any car dealership, if you're an American car manufacturer, you can hike prices in reaction to the expected hike. And indeed, the president himself said, let them hike. Let the big three hike. And you saw the head of the AFL-CIO said, it's not so bad if he hikes. So I'm worried about that echo chamber, that reaction. But this is it's going to hit places like pharmaceuticals, shampoos, everyday products, certain produce items that you took for granted, or textile items and towels. It's not easy to just turn around and reshore these jobs and these factories over the course of 6 months. It takes years.
We saw the president also mention in his remarks that his policies are bringing down inflation. We should point out, in fact, that inflation has picked up in the first few weeks of the Trump administration. But when you look at the tariffs and as they go into effect, what could be the impact on inflation ahead?
Why wouldn't it add to inflation? I don't understand. It could become deflationary if everybody panics and stops spending and the Fed's like, okay, we got rid of inflation, but that's a pretty Luddite move. I mean, it's a roundabout way of destroying the economy. There are easier ways of destroying the economy and getting interest rates down. So that could arrest inflation, but I've never seen that playbook before.
There's also the underlying argument by the Trump administration here that there could be short-term pain, but this is for long-term gain, that this will spur domestic manufacturing in the United States. Have you seen evidence of that anywhere? Could it have that impact?
We did see, since even look at all the companies that have onshored here, especially in auto manufacturing. I'm not convinced that in lower value added things such as textiles, there used to be towel towns, there used to be sofa towns in North Carolina, it is brutally hard to bring those things back. When you source the fiber and the labor and the railroad tracks that have been left abandoned for several years. You go down the eastern seaboard and see these abandoned facilities. It's not like you can just light them up over the course of 2 weeks. I mean, this is a play that takes decades.
Roben Farzad, host of Public Radio's Full Disclosure. Thank you so much for being here. Great to have you here in person.
My pleasure. Thank you.